The project I'm working on today, I'm going to be using the new Hunter 820s. It's in the 800 series. These just barely came out. I want to see how well they work. They have a higher precipitation rate than the standard MP rotators. It's double the rate. So instead of 0.4 per hour, it's 0.8. I want to see how well they work in this setting. The area that I've got mapped off was 24 at max as far as width. So these can throw out to 24 feet, so it works. It should work really well for the setup. Another thing that I'm using is the Hunter PRS-40s. These basically it's just a standard pop-up riser, except for it's got a pressure regulator, so it'll work really well with these 800 series nozzles. Okay, I'm redoing a section of a property. Oops, there we go. I'm going to be using an Apple iPad to be able to do the measuring and to set out the sprinklers. I plan to use I'll show you, the MP-820, the 90s, and the halves. So right now I have the sprinkler system calculator, the zone calculator app open, and I will use that to be able to do the calculations to see how many can fit. Okay, there we go. Now, starting with the measurements, I use an iPad or an Apple device to do this on a regular basis because I'm able to walk the property, and it will give me measurements based upon what I put out, or where I put all the. You can see there's a head right there. Set the dot. Turn around and look, and that one is 40 feet from one end to the other. The 800s or 800 series that I'm using will go, I believe it's 20 to 24 feet. I'll have to look to see just to make sure the information is on the calculator app. Okay, so 24 feet wide. If we're going to be 40 feet from end to end, I'm going to doing it by hand, put flags down in, so one in between. Actually, let's get this measurement out. So we want to go from here half that distance. I'm going to use what's showing on the screen. There's my half mark right there. So knowing that, I can then put a flag in the ground for the half mark. Walk back over, put this flag in the ground. Sorry, I'm covering I got way too much in my hands. All right. You can see it's a little bit off, but close enough for something this large. Just make sure that our distance here is the same. Also says 24 feet, that's good. Now you can see there's one already there. I am replacing the ones that are on site. They are not working well anymore. And we're going to go with that same 20 feet because now we know it's square. So right there. Okay. And then the last one on this section can be done the same way. Let's see. Yeah, that's pretty darn close. All right. So stand back and look. It's gonna have 6 of them on that section. Actually, the zones run this direction, so they may not be on the same zone depending on how things have to be redone. All right, I'm gonna measure the second section, and I know I'm gonna put one in the corner, so let's put a flag in that corner. We'll see how big this section is. Okay, that section is 32. Okay, so let's then also do the half on that one. So be right there. Now, the distance from one end to the other, I don't always go around the outside. A lot of times I'll walk across just to give me an idea. You can see it says right there 22 feet, so, or 21 feet, which will make this work really well. This is where the other one should end up, but I'll move it slightly if I have to. Walk back over here and do this one, because this section is not square but rectangular. So this one will have to go there. Okay. Let's see if that one is. Okay, you can see that the center spot I was off by about a foot. So move it over and get as close as possible to where it belongs. Okay, the section is done. I'm going to now start painting it out to show where I need to make changes, but I have to run the sprinklers, and I'll come back to do that. Okay, I'm going to quickly check where the sprinklers are. Actually really close in the center one especially. Should have marked them. Getting soaked doing it. Now see, this one's way off. That's where it's got to be. So we are quite a bit out of the way. And then all of these, soaking wet. All of these are where they're supposed to be, other than that one in the corner. So we don't have to have a whole lot of movement. There wasn't one in the middle on this left side, so there's got to be one added there. So we're gonna have to add one at this point right here. This one right here exists slightly to the side of it, so that one's got to be moved from here over to here. Okay. This guy's in the right place. This guy's in the right place. Marking them so when the flags disappear, people like to snag them for some reason. All right. This is where it belongs. That's where it came from. So I'm not going to paint a hardscape because I don't want that to take a while to come off. This one's got to move a long way, well, quite a little ways. Okay. It's like a break right here, and That's where that head was. These heads were all where they were supposed to be. This zone, oh, too late, it shut off. It has some little hot spot sprinklers. Let's move this one. There. Has some little hot spot sprinklers since this driveway gets so hot. Makes it dry out quicker. Okay, now that they're marked, I'll go through and do the evaluation. I'm going to use the zone calculator app. Now, on this site, we have 13 gallons a minute available, and we're going to go on. I'm pushing the wrong button. I always do around 80% because I know I have more than 13 gallons a minute available. So in this case, I mean, it all depends on what I know about the property itself. Oops, wrong ones. I got to select the 800 series because that's what I'm working with. I'm going to scroll down until I find the 820 series, and I'm only going to be using these nozzles because the, let's see, 13 to 16 feet for the next series down, or the next model down, and that won't get me the distance that I need. However, this one will. So going back and looking real quick, we have 6 heads in this section, 6 in that one. It makes a total of 8 quarter heads and 4 half heads is what we can count. 1, 2, 3, 4 half heads, and then all the ones around the outside. So go back. Now we're only going to do, since the way it's currently laid out, it has 8 on one, 8 of these on one zone. See if it'll do the ones we want. It will. Now the remaining GPM is 3.6. Being that they're 1.72 gallons per minute, there's no way to get 4 halves, which actually what I just put on is the same as 4 halves. So just like it's already set up, it's going to be 2 zones. I won't have to change the zone arrangement. I'm just going to at this point, let's add a zone so that we can add the 4 here. And as you can see over here, we now have 8 heads on the one, 4 heads on the other, so they're all accounted for. And since they fit, like here, I'll give you an example. If I put too many on, it won't allow me to continue to add. After 6, it says remaining GPM is only at 0.1, so it's not enough to add additional heads. So I'm putting that back to the way it was. It didn't refresh. It's still saying 6, but that's because I messed with it. Now, that again, this system is new, so that's just a bug in the system that will have to be fixed. So, I know that I'm good to go to be able to start doing my head replacement because it shows that that we have adequate water availability. So, the next few is going to be me replacing heads. At this point, I'm just starting to replace the sprinkler heads themselves. As you can see, just dig it up to get it accessible. To clean out around the head as best you can so that you don't get any debris in it when you pull it off. Sorry about the bad camera angle. I don't really have the equipment that I'd like to have for this. Make sure you don't cross-thread these when you put them on too. That's a big deal. If you wind up cross-threading them, they may hold together and they may work, but their water is going to be flushing out around the threads on a regular basis. And then reinstall the soil and the sod. Basically right here I'm just cleaning out around it and then tamping it down with my hands or my fist when I'm hitting it. Here we are moving on to the second head. I'm going to have to dig this out a little bit farther because this head's got to be moved about a foot. The really it's I mean that may not have made a ton of difference as far as distribution uniformity, but I try to be as accurate as possible when I'm putting these things in. Right now I'm struggling a little bit because there's some other older irrigation components or an older irrigation component in the ground. Right here, it's a maxi pod that's in the way. It's not even connected to anything, but I've got to get it out to be able to get to be able to well, basically so I can dig around it to be able to put the stuff where I need it. So I just yank it out of there, and literally it wasn't even attached to anything. So it's a actually I remember digging some stuff up in the area before at this same spot, and there was a bunch of hose connections. So it was actually a system somebody ran with hoses. Again, just trying to clean out around the head so that I can access the funny pipe to be able to cut it off and make an extension. Moving the camera a little bit so that you guys can get a little bit better view. Just pull out the sod, and I pull back on the head so that I can basically get access to it. These scissors right here are they're utility scissors. They're fantastic for cutting this funny pipe. It's just because I can get the tip down in there instead of trying to use a set of hose cutters or something similar. It works fantastic to be able to get. You can see how close I was to the dirt there, so I didn't have to worry about the tools being able to get around it. So it sniffed it off pretty good. And then these funny pipe couplings, they just push on. The barbs hold tight because the funny pipe is very elastic. So you actually can't even get it off without cutting back on those. You'd actually have to put a slice down the pipe to be able to relieve that. It literally won't come off, even if they're threaded ones. They do not come off. So it's a very solid fitting once you push it on. So you don't need hose clamps. Again, using those scissors to be able to get that funny pipe cut there. I just use a funny elbow, which is again the same type of barb fitting, only it has the half-inch thread. I don't have any Marlexes with me on this project, but the site in most cases don't use Marlexes, so it literally was not that big of a deal because it was put back the same as what was already in the ground to begin with. Normally, I'd use the full Marlex just to give a little bit more flexibility to be able to adjust the swing on them. I feel like the Marlex gives us a better leveling agent basically. Right now, when I'm putting them in, I'm putting them in with the funny pipe relatively flat, so it's not that big of a deal. That's why the Marlex really wasn't necessary. But in the future, as the soil rises or things happen in the area, it's nice to have a Marlex there because then you can dig down and adjust that head very easily. Again, just putting all the soil back in and cleaning up as well as possible and making sure there's nothing around the head. Here we are at number 3 of 12. Um, Being that I'm replacing, 12 in this project. It's two full zones, even though it's 12 heads, and it is two separate areas, but the lines actually run across the sidewalk itself as it crosses through the center of the yard. So, it's just the way that the system was designed for the outside edges to be on one zone and the center to be on another one. One thing that I do when I shake the head like that is it helps to get that soil to move away from the fitting so that I don't wind up getting it down inside when I pull it off. One of the worst things that can happen is that you think that you're nice and clear, you got all the soil away from it, but then when you pull that head, the small amount of water that's left in the line will then backfill the hole a little bit, and it will allow the debris, if it's too close to the fitting, to be able to wash down inside of it, which causes some issues for you because you have to flush the line out, or it's going to wind up plugging everything up, and you don't want to run into that situation. It makes things very difficult to be able to get it nice and clean, or even a good working product. Because if those heads get debris in them, it makes it very difficult to be able to get it out completely, and I can have some serious problems over time. And here we are on the fourth one. Um, Now, one thing I didn't note about these heads, I am replacing R vans that have been in the ground for, I don't know, 12 or 14 years. And they did work relatively well for the property. They had some little bit of coverage issues, even though they're rated for 24 inches, or sorry, 24 feet. In most cases, they didn't quite shoot as far as they needed to, so there were some issues with coverage. Plus, they weren't the coverage. It wasn't laid out as well as it should have in the first place. That's why I'm going with the pressure regulated head so that we can get a much better even coverage, so that every head has the proper pressure. That way, they will shoot the exact 24 feet that we're looking for. And that way I can start at 24 feet and reduce down as far as some of the areas are slightly shorter than 24 feet, but as long as it's not causing any damage, it's nice to have a little bit of overlap. So that's part of why I'm doing it the way that I'm doing it, so that I can get the best coverage possible. Um, that's it's just good practice to try to make sure that you've got at least head to head, if not slightly farther, would be is preferable. Other than people tend to get upset when they see water hitting the hardscape. They feel like it's a total waste of the resource. However, when you get the thing they don't understand is that if your distribution uniformity in the center of the grass is actually higher, you lose less water by the small amount that hits the hardscape than what actually is applied where it needs to be, so that you're not having to overwater to compensate for that difference. If you're having to compensate for poor distribution uniformity, the loss in the center of the lawn, it can be much higher than the loss on the outside. I know that doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense, but it is true. There is a balance between having a little bit of overspray versus having a lower distribution uniformity. Again, you saw that I pulled out some more old components. There's quite a few different uh, parts and pieces that I've found on this project that I mean, it's just an old, as I say, interesting hose setup. Somebody had literally buried garden hoses to be able to do some of this. So it's yeah, I mean, that very unique, very. I've seen it a few times, and it's kudos to them for coming up with a system that works. Off of what they had available as far as resources and their understanding. Uh, Obviously couldn't find my scissors. It's because they're sitting in the box over there. I was sitting there looking in the tool bag. I'm really good about misplacing my stuff. I'll set it down, and there they are. They were in the box. Yeah, and it's just that's something I need to get past. I constantly set my stuff down in the wrong place. Putting another one of those couplings so that I can extend this one out just a little bit. Like I say, some of these had to be moved just a little bit. A couple of them had to be moved a little farther than just a little bit, which you'll see closer to the end. Um, and there will be some more discussion at the end, which I can imagine I'm gonna make a few people upset by the way that I set it up, just because I have some of my own specific quirks on the way I like to install things. Again, just try to get that head down there level. You can see that the turf is a little bit higher in this section than the one before. So you don't set the head at the height of the sidewalk. You set it at the height of the turf, so that you don't want it to wind up getting buried in that turf. Another thing too, always leave a finger's width at least worth of space between the sidewalk and the head, because when people come by and edge the sidewalk, it just totally trashes the head if you have it sitting up against the sidewalk. Right there, I was using to be able to get the sod to cut nice and clean. I was using it's a saw that I use that is actually a wood blade. It's a draw saw. I really enjoy that draw saw. It's one of my favorites, and it can be used for many different purposes, and surprisingly enough, it hardly ever gets there. They hardly ever get dull. And there it was again, using those scissors to be able to cut back some of what the overgrowth as far as the plants go. Like I say, I use those for so many things. They're literally I would have never thought I put them in my bag because it was a Christmas gift, and I thought, yeah, you know what, I'm not going to use them around the house. Maybe I'll find a purpose for them in the field, and I find myself reaching for them so frequently that I mean I can't say enough about how fantastic those utility scissors are, and that wood blade as well. Those are the two nicest tools, or our most commonly used tools that I have in my bag. You'll see me using time and time again. And not in my older videos. This is a relatively new thing for me to be using. And there we are with 6 heads complete. Right now I'm digging up the 7th head, which I don't know if you see the little black specks there on the left. I was really upsetting some ants. They became pretty cranky while I was doing this. Fortunately, it was a wet day because it'd been raining, so they were a bit docile. As far as that goes, I've had these ant beds where I've got into them and you have to stop working because they're so aggressive. Now you can see that pipe moves right here. I'm pushing it back, moves that border of stone right there, and or block, whatever it is, the brick. It's because it was only put, I would say, an inch underneath the soil, and then that's why the Marlex is on there, because the pipe, as far as the funny pipe, comes out at about an inch underneath the soil and then dives down to say 6 inches deep to be able to accommodate the head. And that's one thing that's nice about funny pipe is you can get that flexibility. And when it freezes, other than the head that's susceptible, the funny pipe doesn't become damaged because it can actually expand. So having or using funny pipe for this purpose, that's one of the nicest things since it was introduced, was that you no longer have pipe splitting because you have water in a belly. Now, where I'm at, it freezes. Some people don't have to deal with that, or I'd say uh, a large amount of the people that have to deal with irrigation don't have to deal with freezing, and boy, they're lucky because the damage that can be caused by freezing water is extensive and can be very costly. But using funny pipe, you can eliminate some of that, which is one of the reasons that I like using funny pipe as my swings instead of hard pipe. Again, moving on now, we're on the 8th head. We're nearing the finish line here. Other than the last three are the biggest challenge in this whole project. There's a break next to that one. We'll show, or next to one of them, and then the other ones have to be moved quite a ways. So we'll get to that here in a minute. Literally, this again, same thing, just trying to clear out around it and spin it off, put the new one on. That would have been a good one to be able to show that I was removing the R vans, because it shows that it's the old head looked like a very good quality head with the R van nozzle on it. But again, they were, I didn't quite get the performance as I had expected when they were put in years and years and years ago. But yet, this, you know, they worked better than what was previously on site. There were some orbit. Um, I'd replaced some orbit heads on site that were a set of rotors, but since the spacing was messed up on them, it didn't water, like they had to screw the screw down to be able to make it water properly. So that's why replacing them was such a good deal. All right, now we've moved on to the very first of the worst portion of this project. This one is it's a break right here. It's not even a break. What it is the pipe had pulled out from there. And you see me trying to push it back together just to see whether or not that was an option, and it wouldn't go back together. But as I dug back a little bit to see how this was laid out, I realized that the line in the flower bed has got to be removed anyway, and it's because this is being eliminated, having drip in the flower bed. Some of this I will allow the heads themselves to overspray the flower bed a little bit, because the front portion of it is going to have some heavy water use flowers. So it's not a problem for it to overspray a little bit, but it doesn't need those heads in there anymore. So I'm gonna dig it back and cut that out, which you can see it's already been separated, so it's not going to be a problem to be able to pull it out when it comes time. Right now, I'm just exposing that poly pipe so that I can get it cut, and trying to show as best I can what it looks like when yeah, right here as I'm zooming in. And I use the ratchet cutters on poly pipe because it's just so much harder. And here I am just pulling it out, and I'll wind up pulling all that stuff out. That stuff's now all trash. So it's just coming to the end here, so that it'll only basically water the grass. I also didn't have the component I needed, so right here I'm showing me extracting it. You have to be really careful when you're doing this because if you cut till you feel it and you just keep pulling, it will cut a groove in there and then you'll have a leak. So you take your time, cut back very slowly. You can see it now opened up in one spot. A lot of times you can do this, and then you just start wiggling it back and forth, and it will pop the last little bit loose. And that way, I was able to reuse that same portion of that funny pipe. And then this, or not funny pipe, the same. Sorry, I was able to use that same fitting from the poly pipe. Sorry if I can speak correctly. Uh, and then anyway, hose clamp because it came apart. Sometimes the poly pipe is if it's fresh and elastic, you don't need the hose clamps, but it's always a good idea to use them just because, it's intended to have, the band to restrain it. Because obviously this one came apart, so it really did need it. So, again, that's all I'm doing is just now that I've got that in place, you can see that I just attached a piece of funny pipe, and that becomes the swing joint because it's the end of the line. It doesn't need to have the threaded fitting or the Marlex or not Marlex, the threaded fitting or the half-inch fittings to be able to make it a very standard setup for what the property is. I basically was eliminating um, having the threads on the end of that one. And now I'm going to show you here in just a second how I typically get underneath this like the little hardscape barrier. I'll dig down fairly deep so that it's nice and straight edges on it, and then just use rubber mallet and knock through a 3/4 inch tubing or 3/4 inch pipe, and then through that same hole where I just pulled out the 3/4 inch, then I will feed my funny pipe. That way, I'm able to get the funny pipe to be able to go where I need it, so that it's got its own little guide, and occasionally I'll leave the 3/4 inch PVC in place and use it as a sleeve in case anybody ever needs to pull it back or whatever. But in this case, when I pulled it out to try to get the soil out of it because it was so plugged, it wound up snapping because it was an old piece. So I didn't use it. I just fed it through the soil itself, which isn't a big deal. I mean, funny pipe comes up all over the place. It's pretty typical. There was a good example right there of using those scissors. I was able to get down into a tight space and be able to cut that off. Yeah, it can be done with the ratchet cutters, but it's a little more cumbersome, a little harder to use because you're having to, ratchet down the fitting where this little, well, and also hook it around the funny pipe itself. Anyway, now we've moved on to extending out there was a head that was missing over there. I'm flagging out the diggable area. So I'm going to remove all this and trench it by hand because it's not far enough for me to really go bother renting a trencher. It's it there's no it'll actually take less time to dig it up than it would to go pick up a trencher. So might as well just dig it up. Now, I mean, I guess it really depends on the soil. This was watered beforehand to make it soft. In fact, there were some people that came out and said, by the way, the sprinklers are on. They probably shouldn't be on. Well, yeah, the reason that they were on was to soften the soil so that it was diggable. It's a little early in the year to really have it on, but for something like that, I mean, using it as a tool to make my job easier. So um, I don't mean to upset anybody, but literally, it's just means and methods to be able to make the job a little bit simpler. So, I mean, watering to where you're down about 6+ inches deep, and it takes some time for the water to get down that far. So you actually need to water fairly heavily to be able to get that, but not like
super quickly. A lot of people they'll just go drop a hose on it and turn it on and say, "Oh, hey, I saturated that for you." Well, what they did is they ran the water and it all ran off because it didn't have time for it to soak in. So, if you're going to do that, throw a sprinkler on the end of the hose, or if there's existing sprinklers, just use the existing sprinkler system and run, a fairly good, 2-day cycle basically to be able to get the water to penetrate 6 inches if you can, because right now I'm trying to dig this down, everything down to approximately 6 inches because that's the base of the head typically, and I'm running into to roots right there. So that's why I'm not at that point. You'll see in a minute, I'm going to be really trying to beat those roots out. But the rest of it, I'm going down about 6 inches. You can see the shovel sinks all the way down in the ground, and it's because where this location is at, even though it freezes, 6 inches is typically good enough for the type of pipe that's going in the ground. It's not going to be pressurized all the time, so and it does drain out very well. It's one of those where it I don't have a whole lot of trouble with it. And that's the reason that 6 inches at this location is fine. Now, some places I've heard that Alaska is several feet. So I mean, it really depends on the location. And since my experience is limited to the area that I work in, I can't give any advice on that either way. So, I mean, I guess the only advice I would have is do what's common in your area. As you can see, I'm just about done with getting this dug up. All of this took me approximately an hour to dig the entire thing, pull it out, and put it back together. So I mean, it's not too bad. I mean, it seems like it's a lot of time, but it would have taken an hour, hour and a half to be able to go pick up a trencher, come back, use it and then take it back. I don't own one. I would have had to have rented it. So it really just makes more sense to just dig it by hand. Now, if I was doing the whole property, oh, by all means, I would have definitely went and got a trencher because it would have made the job much more slick. And in that case, I probably would have gone deeper just because the machine's doing the work. So it's a little different that way. I would have been able to get the depth that I wanted without too much work there. Boy, there's a great shot of hair loss there. That's fantastic. At least it's me. I can talk about my own hair loss apparently. It right now it's just it bugs me a little bit to look at it from this point of view. But hey, I'm the one shooting the video, so it's my problem, right? All right, so here I am. I'm going to start working on the those roots, and you can see they're right at the surface. There was a massive tree in this property at one point, and these roots are truly massive. But the tree's been gone for a long time, and I thought that when I started digging this, I thought, oh, no big deal. It wouldn't be that big of a deal to be able to pull it out. The reason the center was so easy to dig is because the company had removed the stump, so it was not something that got in the way. But they didn't remove all of the roots, which is very uncommon to do because that's extensive work to try to remove all the roots in the yard. You just let them rot away because that's just nature. But as you can see, pulling out huge chunks, this is the biggest reason why I always use a fiberglass shovel instead of a wooden shovel. I use it, a lot like a pry bar. I'm not prying super hard on it, but hard enough that I could break a standard wooden handle, and I do all the time, or I used to all the time until I just refuse to use wood anymore. I only use fiberglass. In fact, the shovel that I've got there is fairly new to me. I mean, that one's probably 4 or 5 years old. But the shovels that I was using prior to that were approximately 20 years old, and it took that long for the heads to wear out because the fiberglass handles didn't wear out. I mean, they were over that period of time, the only thing that changed is the fiberglass was getting a little lighter color, and the grip handle started to crack just because the plastic in it was wearing out. And there you go. Now you can see the size of some of those roots that I'm trying to get through there. I wish I had a better angle here so you could see the depth and how I'm leveling that out. Once I get down to 6 inches, I basically use the shovel or my fingers to be able to level it out so that as the pipe is laid in the bottom, it lays kind of in the bottom of a V and gets it as deep as possible within the diggable area or the excavated area. Now I'm going to work on where the supply is, and this is where I'm going to run into quite a few people, I'm sure, that are going to tell me about my methods. I don't have any problem using funny pipe to be able to run laterals. And the reason is because I base it upon flow, and as long as I'm not exceeding the flow that the funny pipe needs over extended period or extended length, um, that basically 3 gallons per minute, funny pipe can run and still only have like 3 psi loss over the distance of the entire pipe. And the fact is this area is 85 psi, and we're pressure regulating down to 40, which means there's going to be zero loss as far as I'm not going to fall below 40 psi, so it's going to operate the same regardless. So that's the reason I decided to go ahead and do a funny pipe, basically put that T in there and be able to run it all on the same thing. It winds up, those two heads actually wind up being closer to 3.5 gallons per minute, but that 3.5 is only running about 3 feet from the source where it comes out of. Well, I know that this entire place is run off of 3/4 inch lines, and they're very close to where the heads are here. But it comes off again off of that. You saw the poly line that was on there. There, it's all poly on this property. So I know that the source, at the 3/4 inch source, can handle, closer to say 8 or 10 gallons a minute before I have to really be concerned about pressure loss. And then I've got or I've got the bunny pipe, which is it's only another 3 feet of where it's running at that what did I tell you? The 3 gallons a minute, roughly 3.5 for that 3 feet, and that's where the pressure loss was greatest. So I don't have any problem running it. Please feel free to tell me different. Tell me what you think, and if you're going to completely shoot it down and tell me how horrible it is, give me a good explanation. Tell me why you wouldn't use funny pipe. Give me a good reason. Go ahead and throw it in the comments, and um, you know, I don't. We all learn from each other. Tell me what you think. So I would appreciate that. Again, now I'm trying to fill this back in, but I took out so many roots. I literally have got to come up with a source of dirt, and I realized that I did have some in a bag that I had purchased, and it was sitting in my truck. So I will bring that over in a minute. And it was a compost soil mixture, so it was a bit expensive, but not as expensive as leaving site to go get something. When you have to leave site and you're doing this kind of stuff, sprinkler repair, your loss from time is huge. If you have to go pick anything up, I mean, it's literally going to the store is costing you employee time, time lost in your the amount of money that you could be making at the time. I mean, literally, it's not a good deal to be having to leave site. So I try to be as prepared as possible. And here it is, basically just flushing those heads out. The little nozzle on the end of these, as you can see how it sprays flat like that. It's just Hunter's little flusher nozzle. And here we are now. I'm going to go ahead and put on the MP rotator heads. These are the 820s again, as I said. I'm putting the 820s on. You basically pull up the riser and you set the little notch on the side to the left. Once it's set to the left, that'll give you your left stop, and then you have to set the right stop based upon when the sprinklers are running. You can't set the right stop as you're putting it together. It's just one of the few things I don't care about MP rotators. I like setting the right stop so I don't have to get soaked while I'm doing it. But um, the benefits to using these MP rotators far outweighs me getting wet to be able to put them in. So, I just deal with it because it is what it is. And here we are now. I'm going to start adjusting those right stops. So you can see, first I click it to the left, grab that, and twist it to be able to get it. And this tool was not ratcheting or not, it was slipping, and so I didn't use the tool, you can actually use your fingers to adjust that. So you adjust that little ring to get your right stop, and you adjust the black stem to get your left stop. One nice thing about MP rotators too is that as you're if you're along a sidewalk like that, you can see some of the water is getting on the driveway. Sorry, not sidewalk. Some of the water is getting on the driveway, but you can set it very close, very tight tolerance, so that you're not getting vehicles wet, and that makes customers really happy when you can water within a foot of the vehicles, but yet not get them wet unless it's windy. So that's a huge plus over using traditional spray heads, which tend to mist all over the vehicles, or using rotors, which also tend to do the same. Or sometimes the rotors will run one click past where they're supposed to, or one click short, and so you wind up soaking areas that you don't want to. Again, I'm just um, showing all of these being adjusted. I set this so it didn't shoot out in the road, so that's the reason I set the left stop in the wrong place on that one. And then again, adjusting around those other ones to make sure that they work. Just about done. It's just about ready to shut off here. It was only set for a 3-minute test, so I know I have to be speedy at it. Can't take the time to get it very, very accurate as far as where the water's dropping. But I can do minor adjustments later, which is something that I typically do.